is up, YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Elon Muskular, and in this video I'm going to be going over a video with Ric Drasin and responding to it. This is his video called Steroids in the 70s. So hopefully in this video we can learn a little bit about golden era, old school bodybuilding cycles, and then I can give you my comments and let you know what I think about it. According to Ric's experience. You know, Ric was around back in the 70s. He trained with Arnold, Franco Colombo, Frank Zane, and all those guys. He passed away recently, I think last year, RIP. This is a really great resource, and I really recommend you check out his channel because it is a wealth of information. So let's get right into the video.
Corner speaking for Iron Mag Labs. I want to talk about something that's really never been discussed in this world. It's always been kind of like a hidden secret, or somebody really doesn't know, or they think they know, but they're not quite sure. And it's about steroids in the 70s, the golden era at Gold's Gym back from 1969 through all the 70s, and what everybody took. Now, I was there at that time, so I know exactly what everybody took. Without using names of people, because I don't want to implicate anybody, but starting with the top bodybuilders, and some of them that you know, it wasn't that much use of steroids the way we think of today. Basically, it was dbol, primbolan, testosterone.
So he says at first, like, you know, these are some bodybuilders you may know, and I think it's interesting that the first two steroids that he talks about are dbol and primbolan. And these are actually known to be Arnold Schwarzenegger's favorite steroids that he used, you know, for most of his physique gains. So I think it's safe to, you know, assume that what Ric is going to be talking about is what he took with those guys, just like Arnold. So if you really want to know what Arnold took, what those golden era guys took, he's going to give it to us straight, hopefully.
DECA, Winstrol, and Anavar. Those were the main ones. There wasn't anything outside of that. Growth hormone wasn't really known about then, so nobody really used it. I mean, maybe it was in some circles, but we sure didn't hear about it. Mostly tablets. The injectables were the ones I mentioned. The Winstrol, the dbol, and the Anavar were strictly tablets. There was no injectable at all of that sort. Dbol was made by CIBA, CIBA. It was a little blue pill. It came $100 a bottle. And if you bought it at the pharmacy with a prescription, it was $8 a bottle. DECA was $1.
So when he's talking about this CIBA Dbols, they were 5 milligram pills. So when you hear a lot of these old school guys say, you know, we took 3 to 5 pills a day, they're talking about like 15 to 25 milligrams of dbol.
50 a vial. That's it. Testosterone, let's say 10 cc's of enanthate was $10. Anavar around the same price, and down the line nothing was really expensive. Now you have to realize back in 69 and the 70s, steroids were not illegal. They were never looked upon as being illegal. There was a doctor's prescription. You could get it pretty easily if you needed it, and then you had it. There were those doctors that were affiliated with Gold's Gym back in those days that would just hand it to you. One was a pediatrician who was well known. The other one was a medical doctor who was well known. And if you needed something, you got it. Now, from the top of the line bodybuilders, the ones that were really competing in the Olympia back then, from Gold's, their main routine was taking primbolan, Winstrol, and DECA. I forgot to mention DECA.
So there you have it. You know, that would be a golden era competition stack. Primbolan, DECA, and Winstrol. And I think it's also very interesting to note that he mentions a pediatrician and then another doctor. Well, we know who one of these doctors was. It was Robert Kerr. And he actually wrote a book about, you know, steroid use in athletes back in the 70s. And he talks about DECA as a cutting drug. So we see where a lot of this information comes from. They didn't look at deca-durbolin like we do today as like a massing bulking drug. They looked at it as a cleaner alternative to testosterone as a base when it comes to getting that shredded look and actually holding less water.
And not in any great usage. It was like a cc of each, maybe once to twice a week. That was it. People seem to think that some of these guys were taking like 10 cc's a day every day. I never saw it happen. No way in hell did that ever happen. Dbol, no more than 3 to 4 pills a day at most. Anavar was weak, so it's 6 to 8 pills a day, and Winstrol was 4 pills a day. Now, I started on dbol back in the maybe late 60s.
So when Rick talks about, maybe 1 to 2 shots a week and a few pills a day, you have to consider that Ric Drasin was not a competitive bodybuilder. He never competed in bodybuilding, at least not on a pro level. And he was much smaller than a lot of the guys who are competing, like, Arnold, like Franco Columbu. So you got to take what he's saying with a grain of salt. What he was using to achieve his athletic physique for wrestling, for movies, which is what he did, will obviously be less than what a competitive bodybuilder looking for that edge in Mr. Olympia would take.
I had heard about Bill Pearl taking it. I got it from a pharmacy, CIBA, and I started doing 2 pills a day. By 10 days in, I had grown so much it was ridiculous. This is when everything was real. I really grew from that D-bol, and they quit making it way back in maybe the mid-'80s. CIBA just went out of business, and that was it. It became illegal. They said on the bottles themselves that these drugs would not enhance athletic performance. They had to label that on there, and then they took it off of there. Primbolan, coming from Germany, or Austria, I might say, was probably one of the best things I ever tried, and it was given to me by one of our big bodybuilders at the time, and I had...
So we all know who that is.
Great results of that. I got so huge in 2 weeks, I could hardly fit into my Volkswagen, and I'm not kidding. That's how big I got, just off that and the D-bol. And I never took great amounts. 1 shot a week and 3 D-bol a day, maybe 2 D-bol a day. So when you asked what these guys took and how much did they take, and did they take a lot? No, it wasn't a lot at all. And I always felt that less was more. You didn't need a whole lot to get big.
So I'm all for less is more also. Just like Rick, I do believe that 1-2 shots, 3 cc's to 6 cc's a week of stuff is enough to get a really good, classic, gorgeous physique and a great body, because we see a lot of natural bodybuilders do it. So if you just keep yourself on a slightly enhanced level, it can be not as detrimental to your health. Rick lived into his 70s. And there were also big problems with his diet. A lot of these guys doing the high meat, low carbohydrate diets as well. So it's going to lead to heart disease and going to lead to health problems down the line. Arnold had multiple open heart surgeries. So, but my point is that, if you're thinking about bodybuilders, though, that were competing, like I said before, and saying they didn't use a lot. Well, some didn't use a lot, but if you were competing, it is pretty well known that guys were using anywhere between 2 to 3 grams of total gear pre-competition. So you can do the math on that, of what the breakdown probably would be. But ultimately, in order to get on the stage with that level of muscle mass, that is the amount of drugs that it takes. And there have been guys who have been open about that as well. So although somebody like Rick might have subscribed to less is more, someone like Arnold definitely did not subscribe to less is more.
If you took too much, it didn't really work that well. It wasn't any better than taking less. It was available pretty easy. Like I said, it wasn't illegal. Everybody had it, and that's how it was. But most of the results in training came from heavy lifting, old school style, and a lot of protein, and very few carbs. When you're on the juice like that, you don't need a lot of carbs for energy because the juice gives you the energy you need. So we would do the cheese omelets and cottage cheese late at night at the deli, hamburger patty eggs and cottage cheese at lunch, chicken and eggs. In the morning was a beef patty and eggs and oatmeal. I mean, it was basic diet, but the carbs were very, very low throughout the week. And I didn't seem to run, or no one seemed to run out of energy because we didn't really need them. And then Sundays, of course, would be the junk day, and then you'd eat everything. And then Monday you're bloated, and by Tuesday.
So they were using this kind of old school, cycling carbs approach where the carbs would be low most days, and then on the weekend they would refill glycogen and fill up. Is this the best way to grow? No, we know that now. Of course, we know that guys nowadays eat a ton of carbohydrates. We have pro bodybuilders eating 600-800, even 1,000 carbohydrates a day in some cases when it comes to putting on mass. And that is one of the main reasons why guys are so much bigger nowadays than they were back then. He's saying, you know, we didn't need the energy from the carbohydrates to train. Well, when you eat high protein, through the process of gluconeogenesis, a lot of the protein ends up being broken down and turned into glucose anyway to fill the muscles. So it's not as effective of a way to consume food. So when Ric Drasin talks about the high protein, low carb diets that they had at the time, you have to look at the bodies at the time. You know, they were living in California. They were concerned with staying lean year round. Many of them were, because they had a lot of photo shoots that they would do. A lot of them would star in movies and stuff like that. So there was a reason why they were like the early fitness influencers, and they felt like that they always had to stay in shape. At least this is something that I've heard many of them say. But on the other hand, was guys like Tom Platz who changed from the low carb approach to a high carb approach and actually got better condition and started to talk about that and spread that. And later in life, Rick does talk about how in the 80s he went on a fish and rice diet, so a high carbohydrate diet, cutting out meat and using fish as his protein source. And he said that he got into his driest and best condition on that type of diet. So it's very clear that carbohydrates are not going to be what is stopping people from, you know, carbohydrates is not the issue here in terms of creating a classic physique.
You're back down to normal again. So this is what the drugs were of the 70s. It's no guarded secret that I know of, but no one ever talks about it, so I'm talking about it because I was there at the time and I participated in everything that we all did. And I got great results. I got great results with it. And when I went off, I hardly lost anything. I maybe lost 4 pounds of water every time I go off a cycle. And sometimes we'd cycle for 6 months at a time and maybe take 4 weeks off and go back on for 6 months or stay on test all year long.
So there, you know, we start to get the actual truth. He's saying we would cycle for 6 months at a time and then maybe go off for 4 weeks. And then at the same time, he's saying, you know, when I went off, I hardly lost anything. Well, if you think about the ester of a lot of these compounds, like, you know, the enanthate ester, the decaenate ester, since he's talking about testananthate, he mentioned in this video, decadurabolin, he mentioned in this video, primbolan commonly in enanthate form, he mentioned in this video. So 4 weeks is just enough time for the ester to start to clear and for your body to start to not have much of the active hormone left. And then at that point, they're going back on cycle. He also talks about staying on test year round. And I think that this was kind of like an early form of TRT, or, you know, sports TRT that they were using, which is common practice right now for guys to stay on 200 to 300 milligrams of testosterone year round, and then sometimes supplement with something else when you need something else for that specific benefit that the extra drug will give you. So it sounds like a lot of the Golden Era guys actually did have an idea of this sports TRT or bridging, and a lot of them never actually came off the way that you think that they did when they talked to you about it, as in not taking anything. Most of these guys were taking something most of the time, and that is what bodybuilding is.
Because we got used to feeling good. So I just wanted to put that out there for you guys. I know you're curious. I get a lot of emails. What did Arnold take? What did Franco take? What did this guy take? We basically all took the same thing. There was no guarded secret. And a lot of the stuff that came from Europe, from Germany, that was brought over was a little bit better than the American made. It was a little stronger. However, the American made came from real labs. It came from the real labs, which was Squibb and some of those that were well-known manufacturers in the US, and they were FDA approved. So the dbol and the testosterone and all those came from, they weren't homemade sources, they were the real deal, and they were very, very cheap. Anyway, I wanted to put that out there. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, you can always email me, Ric Drasin, the G.
So this is a great video, you know, really giving us a lot of insight from Ric Drasin. Amazing guy, you know, to be putting this information out there, and he was doing it before anybody. So if you guys like this video, like the video, comment on the video, let me know any other topics or videos you'd like to see me react to, and make sure that you head over to elonmuskular.com/shredded to learn the shredded secrets of fitness influencers. This is what the guys today are doing with the modern technology, the modern nutritional info, the modern training info to achieve the physiques that you see every single day on Instagram. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.